Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today we're going to be talking about Seen, Known, and Heard. This is part of the book that I've been working on, and it's called The Weeds in the Way. And this is one of my favorite chapters. You all might have listened to this episode a little while back, but I want to get a little bit more in detail, and we're going to take each of these weeds in the way at a time and really talk through them, because I think that these weeds in the way hold us back so much from thriving and developing great life and business strategies. And so I really see this as all connected. I also think that it will help you unpack your story. Our tagline at Storywork is define your story and make it matter. And I think that this will allow you to look at your story, define it clearly, the things that are hiding in the shadows, hiding in your subconscious mind that haven't been processed. They'll come to the surface, and then they'll allow you to be able to process them and have greater freedom. So I was just a guest on a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the backpack analogy. So, as we go through life, we encounter all kinds of different trials and hardships, right? So this could be, maybe if you were bullied in school, or you weren't good as an athlete, or, you didn't, I don't know, you failed a test, you had a mean teacher, all those things. Kids were nasty to you. You had bad breakups. You had parents that divorced, or abuse, or so many things, right, throughout life, way harder stuff too. So you look at all of those things, and each time you get a wound of some sort or something that you go through, it's a rock in your backpack. So just imagine going throughout life, and we're just collecting these rocks in our backpack. And there are points in time where maybe you've experienced this. The backpack gets so heavy, you can't carry it anymore. And sometimes it just brings you to the ground, to your knees, because you've gone through so much, and you can't move forward that way anymore. You can't move forward in the old way. You've got to find a new way. And really what this represents to me is the journey I would say that I was on for probably the first part of my life, striving. So striving for approval, striving to please people, striving for perfection, striving to earn love, right? Because we all just want to be loved at the end of the day. And so really that led to burnout, overworking myself, overcompensating, overperforming in relationships, all of those things. And so I had a lot of rocks in my backpack, and I wonder if you have a lot in yours, or we all do, right? It's hard to keep our backpacks empty and operate freely all the time, especially because we're not perfect. So we're always going to have some rocks in there. But the point of the going through the weeds in the way is to really help you take rocks out, so that you can get more free. Because when you get free of anything that holds you back, then you can run, and not in like a striving sort of way. Like we talk about, the hamster on the hamster wheel. You can get off of the hamster wheel, and you can actually just run freely and intentionally and enjoy your life more with greater contentment. So I start this chapter off by talking about the refinement process. And when we hear refinement, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound super fun to me. It really sounds like buckle up, because we're going to be walking through a season where things are going to be taken out of our lives, or maybe some things stripped away, or, we're going to have to do hard things, all of that. And what I love is the definition of refinement. It's the process of removing impurities or unwanted elements from a substance. So the process of refinement doesn't sound fun to me, and it's not. I've been through it, and I know I'll go through it again and again and again. But the result, or the outcome of refinement, is worth it. It's worth it, I can tell you. The things that have been removed from me, from my character, that were not serving me well, I'm so thankful for, because it's allowed me to walk with greater freedom, but also really to see, know, and hear the people around me and myself better. And life is just completely different. It's completely different. It changes everything. So if you want to think about refinement, it's like peeling an apple. It's not like ripping off a Band-Aid, right? I mean, sometimes we've been through that, right? Where we've had like the rug pulled out from under us, or just these moments that just take your breath away, literally, because they're so gut-wrenchingly hard. And if that's happened to you, I am so sorry, because I know that feeling, and I know how hard that can be. But if you're just listening to this thinking, I know some refinement is coming, I know I can't stay where I am, I know I'm not in a good place, or I know in this particular area I need refinement, I want to encourage you that it can be just a doable process. It's really just like peeling an apple. You're taking just one piece of skin off at a time, right? It's a process. And so what we want to do is just really open up, and ultimately it comes down to just surrendering, just giving up whatever it is that you're holding on to super tightly. And I think if we can get to the place of surrendering, that is the best place to be. Because when we hold everything loosely, then what's meant to come back will come back, you know? And so it's just the best place to be. And whenever I find myself holding too tightly to something, even a thought, it can be a thought, it can be a belief, it can be an ideal, like an idealization that we have, even a dream that we have, a relationship, it can be anything. And if we're holding too tightly to it, it's actually going to hinder us. And so I just encourage you to take a minute and identify what that is and be able to let it go, you know? And it allows us to start to figure out what our weeds in the way are. So when it kind of levels the playing field. It kind of opens up the box for us to look at it and say, okay, I can find some more freedom in letting this go. And I had shared a story where I have a small garden in the side yard. I'm not a very good gardener. I don't really keep things alive very well, unfortunately. Plants. My kids, I keep alive. That's good. My plants, it's a struggle. And so my own personal garden reminds me of this importance with keeping up with these weeds, because if I let them go, they will grow and they will overtake the garden, and they will actually hinder the other plants that are the good plants from growing. And so as we set this conversation up to go through these, and I'll be talking about these one at a time, we'll be able to realize the importance of uprooting the weeds in our lives. Because once we figure out how to identify them, and then how to uproot them, then we can make space for the good things in our lives, in our businesses, and healthy dynamics in our team relationships, and also our personal relationships. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to show you, let's see, I'm going to read out just the weeds in the way that we're going to go through coming up here. We're not going to do this today, but these are the things we're going to be talking about. So stubbornness is one of them. Stubbornness can prevent surrender. Control. So control can prevent surrender. We all want to control things because we feel a lot better, right? But it's a false, actually, sense of control. Unforgiveness. So unforgiveness is the worst offender, because it really only impacts us, not as much the other person. And so it's like we're dying a slow death holding on to that unforgiveness. Bitterness or resentment. Bitterness and resentment are definitely dangerous, because they're anger compounded over time. And so, I think it's like getting a cut and then hitting that same spot over and over and over again. Each time you get more and more and more angry and resentful. And again, the only person it's really impacting the most is yourself. And then anger. So anger can be healthy, but when used in the right way, like if we can vent it in healthy spaces. Assumptions and judgments, these are dangerous. This is where our subconscious mind can get the better of us. This is where, if we're not catching our thoughts, we can find ourselves in quite a spiral. Or we can be believing things about ourselves that aren't true. And then that would also that would be some rocks in the backpack too, over time. Lack of self-awareness. A lot of times we may not be able to see ourselves because it's hard. And so it's easier for us to keep that in the dark, but by keeping that in the dark, it actually can grow bigger. If you think of like a little kid that, thinks that they see a monster in their room, right? But they're really just seeing the shadow on the wall of whatever it is, their desk chair, but when you shine the flashlight on it, it gets smaller and you actually see it for what it is. It's the same with self-awareness and facing hard things. And then there's pride. We all have pride, and it's something that can take us out. The saying, I mean, pride comes before the fall. So if it's something that you're feeling like, okay, there's an area where I know I need to work on this, I know that this is not, I'm not in a good space with this, and I need to surrender, and there's some work I have to do there, then that's something that we'll talk about too. And skepticism. So skepticism is like one that can kind of slide under the radar, but I see it as being dangerous because it can crush hope, and it can crush the ability to dream. And those are things that will ultimately lead us to a more negative state of mind. And I realize that we live in a world where there is a lot that we could be skeptical about, for sure. But I think it's finding ways to process that. And so those are some of the things we're going to talk about. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope it encouraged you and is a little preview of some of the things that we'll be talking about. And as always, if you want more, head to www.storywork.co for more. Thanks.